Handling camera motion in games can be hard, especially in 2D when you have the limitation of working with 2 dimensions. It's hard to give your game a unique personality with its camera motion. Let's fix that today by creating a super simple yet really advanced and good looking camera system with ease using an amazing Godot community plugin called Phantom Camera. So let's get started. Once in Godot, you have to go to the asset library. Here we'll search for Phantom Camera. We'll click on it and install. After downloading, we will click install to install it. After getting installed, we'll go to project and project settings. And the plugin section, we can enable it. Once it's enabled, now we can go to our scene. Here we can add the newly added Phantom Camera 2D node. This will appear as the cyan colored camera, but we're not done yet with the setup. We'll need to assign this Phantom Camera node to our real camera. For that, we'll go to the camera node, Ctrl A to add a new node, and we'll search for a Phantom Camera host node. This node transfers any sort of settings you do on the Phantom Camera node to the original camera, which is going to be used to actually determine how our camera behaves. The Phantom Camera node itself is not a camera, but just a node that actually helps you animate and configure your camera. Those settings and configurations are then transferred to the camera host node, and which then transfers all of these settings to the camera 2D node. Now you're done with the camera 2D node and you can leave it be. All of the settings now can be customized through the camera 2D node. You can even hide it, but now what you can do is you can go to the inspector of the Phantom Camera node. Here you can see multiple different settings. Most of these are not important for today's video, but we'll cover them in some other video. What we're going to be following is the follow mode. There are multiple of these. Glued is simply glued to the target. The target can be assigned easily by dragging and dropping your player node into the assign area, or you can manually select it through the menu. Once your target has been selected, the glued mode will then get glued onto the player, so the player will always be in the center. Slight damping can be applied, but no offset can be applied through this system. You can enable follow damping and give it a value. A smaller value means the player will move less according to the camera. The player would have less freedom, and with more damping mode, the player would have more freedom. We'll go over damping mode in just a second. For that, we'll actually select the mode we are working with. For a simple camera, we'll go with the simple settings. This is the most powerful and easiest one to use. Simple camera lets you add offset, so your camera will stay at a relative offset from the player. This is good when you wanna move your camera away from the player or keep it some distance away. For example, you would want to make it go up in the y direction. Now that you have adjusted your offset, you can also add a good damping amount. For me, a damping amount of 0.5 always works really nice, but something along the lines of 0.2 or 3 could actually be really nice. Be sure both of your damping for X and Y are same, but you can actually change them differently by clicking this unlink. If you want to lock an axis, which means if you don't want your player or your camera to follow your player along a certain axis, you can actually lock the certain axis. For me, I don't want my camera to follow the player when it jumps. It feels jittery and kind of hurts the eyes. So I'll set the follow axis lock to Y. You can rotate with the target, which means if your target rotates, your camera rotates as well. You can set limits so the camera wouldn't go over a certain area. For example, this area here is in the camera's look, which looks really bad. You can actually set this position as a limit, and now your camera won't be able to go over this. This is something that's also doable in the camera node, so we won't really mess with this one. But you can actually assign a limit target, so the camera won't be able to go toward a certain target, for example an entity. You can add noise to add things like jitteriness or noise animation to the movement of your camera. Now you're pretty much done with your camera. You can also mess around with the frame mode, which is quite similar, but now also gives you the dead zone. Frame mode gives you a dead zone. That means it's an area where your it's similar to the damping. It's just that the damping is kind of like affecting a value, and the dead zone is a free area where the player will move and it will not affect any of the camera's property until it's out of those area. Now that you have configured your settings, you can actually just go ahead and use it without any problem. Random camera provides many other functionalities. You can add as many camera nodes and switch between them using the priority system. We'll go over that in some other video, but for now, you're kind of done with the simple camera movement. Well, that's not everything you can actually do with it. There are multiple other properties and functionalities this camera can perform. One of them could be moving along a simple path. When you go to the follow mode and select the path mode, you can actually assign a path to the follow paths mode. You can go ahead and add a Control A to add up node. Then you can make sure it's not the child of the scene. Then you can actually just draw a simple path. For me, I like to draw things like moving along a terrain. You can see the terrain here goes a bit down, so it will be cool if the camera actually goes down with the terrain. I can make this by creating a similar slope using the curves and then making the camera go with it. It does restrict your dynamicness, so your camera won't move dynamically but in a rigidity fashion. Make sure you disable any sort of axis lock if you're making your camera move in that axis. For example, if I am locking the y-axis, the camera won't move up and down even though my curves do. You can now run your game and actually see what's happening. Make sure you actually assign the path to the follow path node. Make sure you actually assign the path to the follow path node. You can see how dynamically our path moves along with the slopes. If you're able to do it really accurately, it can look really amazing. For example, on this slope, it looks like such a beautiful effect. When the player goes up, the camera goes up, and it looks so mesmerizing. You can completely control it using curves, so you have way more control over it. There are many other functionalities this plugin offers, and you can actually explore it by yourself by downloading it. The plugin is absolutely free, so you don't have to pay anything. Please make sure to give a thumbs up to the developer. I'll leave the GitHub repository and links to download these assets in the description.